I would recommend applying with a partner, with a buddy, so that you don't have to ask him and probably pay for him to go with you when you draw, because you don't want to go by yourself.
Pick the experience that you're looking for that matches your physical capabilities.
The Delta Hunt podcast is brought to you by the Hunt Advisors of the Huntin' Fool magazine. We're dedicated to helping hunters dream, plan, and hunt. Join Huntin' Fool today.
Well, welcome. It is December 11th, which means Alaska is due very soon, and that's what we're here to talk to you guys about today. Alaska applications for their limited entry tags are due December 16th. We always have a fairly short window of time to cover this because Alaska's draw supplement comes out fairly late. And so we're going to run you through that. We get a lot of questions from a lot of different members and clients that are interested in hunting Alaska, obviously. And quite frankly, the draw system is a little bit complicated, but we emphasize it repeatedly in the magazine. I noticed you wrote Alaska this year, Austin, right?
Yep.
And I noticed that you did a great job of making sure, especially with regard to the whole 6 choices or 6 chances, you did a great job of mentioning that in several places because a lot of our clients don't understand that. So we're going to walk through Alaska. We're going to do kind of the overview of the licensing and applications, but we're also going to go through it on a species by species basis. And I'm grateful that I get to sit here and ask you most of the questions because as a Alaskan guide yourself, you have a ton of experience, not only inside the paper, but on a practical level on the mountain. So,
And then the sky's the limit, Jared, with Alaska. I think it's important to remember that this draw is unlike any other draw anywhere in the West that we're used to. When you apply in this Alaska draw, you're applying for the fall 2020 hunts and the spring or winter 2021 hunts. So your hunt may be 18 months out from where you're applying right now. So it is one of the earliest, most pre-anticipated draw that's out there. But when you draw a permit in Alaska, that's what you draw is a permit, a piece of paper.
Yep.
You're not auto-charged for a tag. You're not committed to anything as far as the tag goes, which is unusual.
Yep.
Compared to other states. So you do have to buy a license. I think we have to start there.
Yep.
Our big tip for any of those that are applying for Alaska on this license is it's $160. So it's a significant investment and there's no point system.
Yep.
So you have to buy that $160 license. Now, when you go in to buy your license to apply right now, you can apply with a 2019 license, a 2020 license, or a 2021 license, all of which are available to purchase right now. So it's in your best interest. If you do not plan on hunting Alaska, if you for sure don't have a trip plan unless you drew something, buy as far out as you can.
Right,
If you
because
buy,
you can apply multiple years on that license.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you, right now, you've never hunted Alaska, you've never bought a license, buy a 2021 license. You can apply in this year's draw, next year's draw, and the following year's draw, because all the requirement is you must have a valid license that's valid now or in the future to apply in the draw.
Yeah, and in that case, the $160 non-refundable hunting license effectively gets split up into 3 equal chunks where you can continue to apply on that same license. So it makes it a little less painful. And then if you get lucky and draw before the end of, let's say I do buy that 2021 license and I draw this year, then I can go ahead and what would I have to do then? Is that 2021 license good for now?
It's not.
Right.
The license is based on a calendar year, so you have to have a current hunting license in the year you're hunting. So if you do draw tag for a 2020 fall hunt, you will need to buy a 2020 license sometime before you go on your hunt.
Which again makes it extremely unique in that you're literally going to have 2 hunting licenses, a 2020 and a 2021 in Alaska at the same time.
It's crazy.
Yep.
So the deadline is Monday, December 16th, 5 p.m. Alaska time. The only way to apply is online. It's pretty simple once you get into the online system and you go to submit your application. The toughest part is figuring out what in the world you're going to apply for.
Right.
And I think that's our number one question here that we get as Huntin' Fool members want to know, am I supposed to apply?
Yeah. Should I apply?
Should I apply?
And if so, for what?
Because normally, as soon as we hear the word limited draw, we're like, oh, it's the best in the world.
Right.
I got to apply. In Alaska, that's not always true. So we have all these species you can apply for in the draw in Alaska. And almost all of those species are available as over-the-counter hunts as well.
Right.
It sounds weird if you haven't hunted up there, but it is true. So, yes, there's Dall sheep in the draw, but there's also a ton of Dall sheep hunts that are over-the-counter, open harvest ticket. You can drive into the sporting goods store, buy a license, buy the harvest ticket, you booked with a guide, and you can go. You do not need to apply in the draw.
Right.
That's true for everything except bison, musk ox, and elk.
Yep.
All the other species you can do on your own without the need to draw.
Own, right? Yeah. Without having to draw.
So let's go into those guide required species.
Perfect time.
So we've got Dall sheep, brown bear, grizzly bear, or mountain goat. We talk about this every year, but you need to select your guide first, right? Which you're running out of time if you haven't done this yet, but there are a lot of outfitters that are endorsed Huntin' Fool guys that are looking for more clients to apply in the draw under their contract.
Yep.
So you have to sign a contract with these outfitters for those 3 species, and the contract indicates that if you do draw, you will hire them, pay them the guide fee, and then go on your hunt. So you're contractually obligated to be with that person. And that saves the state from having people draw tags that they're not going to use, or they didn't realize that even though you drew a tag, it's still $20,000 to go on a Dall sheep hunt.
Right.
You didn't save a bunch of money.
And it protects outfitters from having potential tags stolen by somebody who who didn't intend to go guided, drawing a tag that otherwise, or a permit that otherwise somebody else could have drawn and booked that hunt with that outfitter.
Exactly. Now the only way around that guide requirement for a non-resident is if you have a resident relative within the second degree of kindred. You got a brother that lives up there, brother-in-law, whatever it may be. You can go hunt with them. They act as your guide per se, and you do not need to hire somebody. I can't talk my siblings into moving up there. You haven't had much luck, so we still have to hire a guide if we're going up there as a non-resident, as will most of the listeners.
And I'm not sure if we mentioned those species. You probably already did, but again, what are those species that you have to have a guide contract for?
So that's Dall sheep, brown bear, grizzly bear, and mountain goat.
Yep.
And that's whether you buy it over the counter or you apply in the draw.
Yep.
But
You're not going unless as a non-resident unless you have a guide or that second degree kindred or closer family living in Alaska as a resident.
And so when you go to apply, your application is invalid if it's not contained with that guide specific code and information. So you need to go through the guide if you're going to apply for any of those big 3 species. Like I said, we have outfitters that apply for all of those in some really great areas. In the Alaska magazine in December, the issue of Huntin' Fool, we covered all of the Dall sheep hunts that are available to non-residents. We included harvest success. We included, the best sheep, looking at sheep scores from the check-in information. We included an average sheep, looking at all the harvest data and the age of the sheep. So we're trying to really dive in and see if these draw areas, are they really better? Do you have a better trophy potential than you do in an over-the-counter area? To each his own. Some guys will look at the draw units and say, you know what, I really want to hunt the Tok management area sometime before I die. I've already shot a Dall sheep, so I'm going to wait in the draw and hopefully get lucky someday. But if you've never shot a Dall sheep, I wouldn't put all my eggs in the basket of drawing.
I would typically suggest not going through the draw. If you've never shot one, get an outfitter, because a lot of times the best outfitters are booked. In fact, in almost all cases, they're booked multiple years in advance, especially on those harvest ticket areas. So if you want to plan a sheep hunt, typically I would recommend bypassing the draw unless you have some specific requirements for size or an experience.
And the draw odds are slim. Most of these Dall sheep hunts are under 5% type odds. Many of them under 1%. I mean, they're tough to draw. What the outfitters will do is get as many clients as they can signed up, try to flood the draw, and hopefully a few guys draw the permits and they can guide in that area for that season. Sometimes outfitters draw nobody in those draw units. So very little data, very little history to go off of. Now, when you get over into mountain goat, there's quite a few draw areas for mountain goat. We have listed, billies that seem to be exceptional over 9 inches versus all of the other billies taken. So we've tried to add some other data in there to give you an idea of what this hunt your outfitter may be selling you really is capable of producing.
Right.
But same thing, you need to pick your guide first. Mountain goat hunts, you've got everything from landing on a lake and shooting them right above the lake on Kodiak, all the way to some of the most extreme ice climbing, late season, nasty country that's available. Some of the goat hunts, yeah, they are world class. Alaska has some really big goats, but you can kill a big goat on a registration hunt as well. That's just over the counter.
Yep.
So pick your guide first.
And your experience. Like to your point, pick the experience that you're looking for that matches your physical capabilities. Align that with a guide, and apply. Well, apply if that meets that. Otherwise, go registration, like you said.
Because many areas in Alaska, the guide can't just guide everywhere.
Right.
He can't take you in every unit. He may have exclusive areas. He may have a concession on federal land, or he may guide on state land and hopefully, uses the draw to get clients. Everywhere is different.
Yep.
You really need to find that outfitter, that guide that you like, that has the style you want, and go that route. For brown bear, grizzly bear, there's very few draw hunts for non-residents. Right. Most of the grizzly bear hunts, they're over the counter. Like your hunt last year, buy the tag online, buy it when you get there. It's a registration permit. You fill out and you're done.
Yep.
You can go hunting.
As long as you have that guide contract.
As long as you got a guide. Got to go that route. There are a few draw areas. So all of Kodiak is a draw. It's even a more unique draw than the rest of the draw.
As if it wasn't complicated enough.
Oh, man. Kodiak's a mess. But Kodiak, you basically book a spot. You do have to apply in the draw, but you cannot apply without booking with that outfitter first. On Unimak Island, which is out in Unit 10, that's a unique bear draw because it's an open draw for residents and non-residents, that are guided. There's only one outfitter there now. He's an endorsed outfitter, and he wants to draw as many non-residents as possible so he can take them, but oftentimes residents draw all the permits. It's a tough draw, but there's some giant bears out there on Unimak. If you've already killed a brown bear and you want to brave the horrible weather and go shoot a giant, I would apply for Unimak Island.
Yep. And this is the species you mentioned. You're applying for fall or spring hunts. This is where it gets complicated is when you talk brown and grizzly bears, because that's where you have to be careful and notice if you're applying for a spring hunt, when does it happen?
Exactly. Let's jump into black bear real quick, which is not a guide required. If you're applying for those few draw hunts like Prince of Wales Island, Kuyu Island, Kupreanof down in southeast Alaska, they're popular hunts for non-residents.
Very popular.
But you're applying a year or a year and a half early.
Yep.
You're applying for fall next year or spring of 2021 right now.
Yep.
So it gets a little bit complicated figuring out how far out you're going to plan this trip and make sure you get everything booked and ready to go when you draw that permit.
For sure.
Tell me about moose, Jared. You understand moose.
Yeah,
now, we've got this giant 3-page table in here of all these moose draw hunts, but what does it mean?
It looks like a lot of opportunity, and of course, like you said, we tend to think about a limited entry hunt as being a better quality hunt. But honestly, for the most part, the moose hunts are managed to sort of restrict non-resident participation, to improve the quality of the hunt for residents. And by quality, Alaskans look at hunting a little different than we do. They're not necessarily looking at inches of antler. That a quality hunt to most Alaskan residents is a full freezer of moose meat.
Exactly.
And that's why a lot of these hunts to residents are open to like a spike-only bull, etc. And so honestly, what Game and Fish is trying to do is make sure that residents of that central Alaskan area have a good opportunity to fill their freezers every year. And so they say, hey, man, we can't have too many non-residents flooding these areas that are more accessible. A lot of Alaska is managed the way that it is because of access. And so many of these limited entry moose hunts are areas that you can drive. There's literally no off-road restrictions. If you can drive there, you can go. And so you see the coolest creations on planet Earth running around out there, hybrid buggies, Argos, amphibious vehicles, you name it. And so I've drawn 2 of those tags and gone on 2 hunts with an Alaska resident because there's a lot of logistics that go into pulling one of those off. And honestly, you're probably looking at harvesting an average bull on those hunts for the most part because, again, they're managing them more for restricting non-residents than they are from a trophy point of view. So typically speaking, we encourage our clients to not really consider the moose draw as being something special. Again, we always go back to outfitters in Alaska. It starts there.
Yep. And moose is such a vast species to cover in Alaska. I mean, you've got everything from I want to go on my own, I'm going to get dropped off and hope for the best. You've got guys selling planning kits now, and a planning kit could be $5,000 to $7,000 just to tell you how to do it,
right?
Where to go, where to rent your stuff, all that. You've got self-guided drop-off hunts. where you pay an outfitter $8,000 or $9,000 to drop you off, provide you with maybe a camp, maybe a boat to float with. I mean, the sky's the limit on moose opportunities. But because the moose hunts are so expensive to go guided, you know, $20,000 to $25,000 at least, all these other options have popped up. Is how do I shoot a moose in Alaska? Because you do not have to have a guide to do that.
Correct. Yep. And from a logistics point of view, to your point, on the transported side, the drop camp side, all the way to the fully guided side, it's really important to look at the options, again, that sort of meet the expectations of the hunt. Alaska, to me, is about an experience. Don't get me wrong, I want to hunt and I want to harvest an animal, but I love the experience of Alaska. And so if you want to, you need to know if you're going to do a float hunt and you've never done one before, that you're going to be setting up and breaking down camp, every day or 2 or 3. It's a lot of work. You kind of have this vision in your head of hopping in the boat and paddling along and catching grayling and, big rainbow trout off the bow of the boat. And in reality, a float hunt is a lot of work.
Moose hunts are a lot of work, Jared. And there's a reason I don't guide moose hunts anymore. No, thank you.
Oh, come on.
Too much meat for me.
I think it's time to get you on a moose hunt for me.
No. But let's go to bison. They have very little meat, right?
Yeah. And you're going to shoot one in the time of year where you got 22 hours of daylight?
Oh, man. Shooting a bison, that's a daunting task. But all the draw hunts for bison, they're the only way you can get a tag in Alaska for bison, resident or non-resident. You have to draw. And they have September hunts. They have, fall hunts that go all the way through the end of the year and into the winter. Mm-hmm. Just depends on what style you want. They're all Boone and Crockett eligible, free range, plains bison. I mean, they're doing pretty well. And
right.
Actually, where we hunt sheep over closer to the Farewell herd, we see the bison all the time when we're flying in and out. And yeah, they're not on the prairies of South Dakota, but it's pretty wild, open terrain that it looks pretty neat. It's not like you're just rolling up and shooting one out of the truck. Most of these bison herds are a long ways from the roads. So,
awesome. A super heavy load. Miles and miles and miles from a road. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong? But there are transporters. There are some guides if you want to hire one that will take you out and you can shoot a nice bison. So if you want to throw in for those horrible odds, I always throw in 1 or 2 chances. Just how can you not?
Yep.
I don't know where else I'm going to shoot a bison.
Right. Yeah, fair enough.
I have shot the next closest thing as far as looks go. They're actually not related to the bison at all, but the Musk Ox. Did you know its closest relative is like a mountain goat?
Yeah, you told me that.
That's crazy. You're like, that doesn't look like a mountain goat.
I'd like to know where that family tree forked.
Yeah, a long time ago.
That's right.
When the mastodons were running around.
That's right.
These Musk Ox, they are a cool prehistoric creature. And I had the opportunity to draw the tag. There's one island, one unit with non-resident draw tags. And I drew the winter hunt, which is February, March. If you go on the September hunt, I'm actually glad I didn't do that hunt. It sounds better. There's more sunlight. The temperatures are higher, but you're dealing with a swamp-infested tundra piece of rock out there on the Bering Sea. So in the winter to get around, it's also wilderness, mind you. So you can have a motorized vehicle on the tundra in the fall, so they use boats and they take you around to the shore. Hopefully they can find musk ox closer to the shore. Then you have to hike.
The wind's not blowing so hard that it prevents you from doing a shore landing.
So I think I'm out on the fall hunts. I don't think that's the way to go personally. But we did the winter hunt, which is a nightmare because you have no daylight. You have ice everywhere. Planes can't get in and out. I mean, we got stuck. Didn't think it was going to happen multiple times. But once you make it to the island and you pay a transporter to stay at his house and rent his snowmobile, you're going to find the musk ox because there's lots of them.
And they're not the wariest creature in the world.
Super easy to kill. Once you can get to them, if you can see them, if it's not blowing too hard, if it's not white out, yes, super easy to kill. They are herded up that time of year and they stand usually on the bluffs, closer to the edge of the ocean where the wind blows the snow off and they eat whatever they eat, pieces of snow it look like, but I guess there's food down there for them.
About like a mountain goat. That's where they're similar.
There you go.
They both nibble rocks for a living.
But super cool animal, great archery animal, but it's an adventure hunt, right? And I made a video out of my hunt earlier this year, and most of it's how we got there and how we survived and how we got back.
Again, an experience
very little
because
hunting.
It's Alaska.
Yeah, but you do not need a guide, but do be prepared. If you draw one of those tags, for one person and maybe a non-hunter to go with you, you're going to be looking at $8,000 to $10,000 for both of you to fly up from the States, buy all your tags, all your extra charter flights, get the animal home. It's going to be a pretty expensive endeavor, even though you drew this limited entry permit and you didn't hire a guide. It's still pretty spendy.
Right.
So word of caution. But if you want to shoot a musk ox and not go to Canada, that's your chance.
And it's your only option for doing it on your own in that case too.
It is.
Everywhere else you've got to go guided.
That's right. Other species that we like to cover in Alaska, they're very unique. Alaska, 100 years ago, did a really good job of introducing species. They brought elk from the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. So they've got the Roosevelt variety up there. They dumped them on Kodiak and Raspberry off Ognak Island, and they've done really well. I guess they're just a big enough elk they can fight off the Kodiak brown bears.
Yeah.
Just barely big enough. Rocky Mountains maybe wouldn't have survived.
Ate them all.
Yeah, but the Roosevelt elks have done well. They do not grow very big antlers. So trophy hunters, not your draw.
Right. This
But-
one's about experience again.
Yep, you can hunt other species. You can fight off the bears. You can fight devil's club, alder, and every other thorn and brush and thicket that Alaska can throw at you while you pack 600 pounds of meat.
As I'm going through this, I'm seeing a theme. I feel like almost every one of these species you have hunted personally, and I'm starting to get irritated thinking about all the experiences that you've had that I haven't had yet.
Well,
Because you were on a hunt with this too, not your tag, but you were on a Roosevelt elk hunt in Alaska.
I figure if you want near-death experiences, you got to go to Alaska.
Fair enough.
Like, it's fun to hunt down here, but, man, I can drive into Maverick and get a drink
Rescue
if I get
yourself.
tired. Yeah.
Rehydrate.
In Alaska, you're like, I don't know if we're going to make it.
Yeah.
There's so many things that the weather in that place is trying to throw at you. And just when you think you got it figured out, it humbles you. But a Roosevelt elk hunt, super neat opportunity. Raspberry Island's probably your number one.
What do the draw odds look like on Roosevelt hunts? What do they range from?
They're going to be under 1% for
Yeah.
Raspberry Island, which is the top one to draw.
Yeah.
The harvest success is the highest. If you look to a Fognak Island, you can get closer to 2 or 3% type odds, buying one chance. But it's going to be tough either way.
Yep.
There's no gimmies. I mean, half the people who draw these tags do not even go,
Right.
even residents.
Yeah,
There's
so-
too many logistics, too much cost, too hard, too dangerous, whatever it may be. So strictly an adventure species. If you want a Roosevelt and you want to be able to say you killed it in Alaska and not in Oregon or Washington or California, that's the place to go.
There's your option.
Yep, and you don't need a guide. Now, while you're there, you can also shoot one of the coolest little deer species. What do you like to call these? The little
They're linebackers. Yeah,
linebackers.
They got this mean little look on their face and the big stocky bodies. They're just such an awesome deer. Like, I had never hunted. Well, I did when I was a kid, way back when I lived in Southeast Alaska. But going back as an adult and observing these things for the first time a few years ago on Kodiak, I just fell in love.
Sickle black-tailed deer, one of the 5 deer species you need if you're trying to get all 5.
Mm-hmm.
And they live all over Southeast, South Central Alaska, and on Kodiak Island. We've hunted them on Kodiak a lot because it's an adventure.
Oh, yeah, brown bear, giant bears everywhere. Logistics again, a lot of things that just make you feel small in this world that make me really appreciate a hunt and drive the memories home for life. I will also add that I think the Sitka black-tailed deer is a great, even though it's a little bit on the expensive side, when you think about the fact, though, that you can buy up to 3 tags, it is a great starter species for people who are just getting into bow hunting because there's tons and tons of stalking opportunities. You blow one, as long as you're willing to work hard, you can find another deer to go chase around with your bow. And 2, they're not super skittish. So a lot of times, even if you bump them a little bit, they'll go a little ways and you can kind of get back on them. So it's a great hunt for somebody who's getting into bow hunting and, definitely need to be accomplished woods person first. But if you're just starting into bow hunting and you're accomplished in the other elements of outdoorsmanship, that's a great starter species.
And we've done other podcasts about our Sitka blacktail adventures. We wrote articles. We just love hunting them.
Yeah.
And they're doing well right now in Kodiak. They haven't had a hard winter, so they're not dying off. They're getting a little bit older age class, and there's thousands of
A
deer
lot of
available.
big bucks came off of Kodiak this year.
So hopefully
with
next
our
year.
friends.
They stick around for next year, and
Yep.
we can kill. I've killed a lot of these little things. Still haven't killed a big 4-point yet. But it's crazy to think you've hunted them for years, and I just want a 4-point.
Yeah.
Like, what are you hunting? Well, they're kind of like a coos deer. They're pretty small.
Yep.
100-inch buck is a big buck.
Yep.
But you've got to get one, so you might as well go to Alaska and shoot a nice one. Now, caribou. Then it's probably the number one species we get asked about in Alaska. And we call this out every year, but remember, all caribou in Alaska are barren ground caribou. Even if they live in the mountains, that doesn't make them a mountain caribou.
Barren ground.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not a mountain Jared, even in the mountains. You're still Jared.
Yeah, it'd be a far stretch to call me a mountain Jared anywhere.
Yeah, I get that all the time. Yeah, I want to shoot a mountain caribou in Alaska. Good luck. They don't exist.
Don't exist, yep.
By species definition, they are barren ground caribou. And herds go up, herds go down. There's still a ton of over-the-counter options. Most of the good options are only allow you to shoot one bull caribou, per hunter as a non-resident. But you need to plan a trip sooner than later. Garth Jensen just went on a trip this year. He wrote a nice article about his trip in a previous magazine, how he did it, what he looked for in a transporter. He did a drop-off hunt. And I think you should hunt caribou sooner than later, no matter who you are, where you are.
Yeah, they're not overall they're not doing well. There's a couple of areas that are doing better than others, but overall as a whole they're not doing well, and so missing out on an opportunity to take advantage of that I think is a mistake as well. And they're not, as Alaska hunts go, they're not very expensive.
They're not.
From a menu point of view of Alaska hunts.
Great first species to go to Alaska. It's either sickle blacktail or caribou in my mind is what you should go up there for. But as far as the draw units, they have 6 draw units that are set aside for non-residents, draw only. The one everybody's usually talks about is Unit 20A. That's the closest thing they've got to a trophy hunt, you could call it. It's only 150 tags. It's very limited, tough to draw, but they kill some really big bulls out there. And every year we have a few Huntin' Full members that draw it. Most of them will book with an outfitter or a transporter. It's not super remote, but you do need to be able to get into the unit to find the good bulls. And you can only shoot one, but it's a chance if you're like, I'm already buying the license, maybe throw in for caribou. They do have a new hunt for this year for non-residents in Unit 13. There's some good trophy potential there, but it's a little bit of a finicky hunt. You kind of have to be prepared. They do shut it down by emergency order sometimes. They give thousands of resident tags on top of it. But if you can get away and get off on some of the trails and find some hidden pockets, you may find a good bull. But before I'd apply for Unit 13, I'd want to have some maybe insider knowledge or a resident up there that that's kind of like, hey, you should put in for that. It's closer to town. We may be able to find us a good bull if you draw.
Yep. I've had a couple of big caribou bulls in Unit 13 in bow range before, but no tag in my pocket.
No tag.
No, back then that was resident draw only. So that's exciting to see that coming around. And my personal experience was that there were a lot of caribou there. So I was disappointed I didn't have a tag.
Yeah, and it's fluctuated a lot. I mean, a couple of years ago they gave 5,000 resident permits, then 600 permits this year. It's like jumping all over. Now they're saying 2,000 for this next year. So it's jumping around just as much as caribou numbers do. But if you want to do it, go get a caribou.
Sooner rather than later. Totally agree.
Definitely. Black bear, we kind of mentioned before, Southeast has a draw for non-residents that go unguided. Keep in mind there you are planning out, fairly far, and you cannot have the same tag 2 regulatory years in a row. So a lot of guys that hunted Prince of Wales, you need to get on a good rotation with you or your buddies because these tags aren't super hard to draw. But if you want to plan a Prince of Wales hunt, for example, you need to alternate on your off year, maybe apply for 𝗀ью Island, different island, and then jump back to Prince of Wales the next year.
You can have a limited entry species year after year after year, the same species, but not the same exact hunt.
Not the exact same hunt 2 years in a row.
Yep.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's about their only restriction there. We do cover all these species in the December issue of the magazine. We talk a little bit about wolf and wolverine, which is no draw, but if you're going to an area, check the regs, see if you need a tag, or see if you can hunt those when you're there, and please shoot them when you see them.
Now, when you talk about tags, you should probably mention the tag down program. I think that's worth noting. It's something that's an interesting thing that not many states offer.
Yeah, so say you draw a tag. Sorry, I should say draw a permit. Trying to get the lingo correct here. Every state's different. In Alaska, you draw a permit, and that allows you to hunt in a specific area, or you register for a permit if it's over the counter. That allows you to hunt somewhere specific, and the permit is where you notch the date, when you kill, you sign it, that good stuff. For non-residents, they require us to have a tag, which is a locking tag. And the locking tag is what we actually affix to the animal, to the trophy. Now, they price the locking tags based on which species is more valuable to them.
More coveted.
Right, which is Musk Ox at the top. Super expensive, $2,200. I don't know why that's so high, but it is. Then the next one down, you get into the brown bear or grizzly bear tag, which is only $1,000. So a lot of guys will actually buy that tag, the locking tag of a grizzly bear, for $1,000. You just buy it. They take your money. They give you a tag, and you can use that on any species that's of lesser value, as long as you have the appropriate permit or harvest ticket for that species in that unit. You can affix a higher price locking tag to a lesser valued animal.
Right. Very interesting system.
Very interesting.
I could take my $1,000 brown/grizzly bear locking tag and harvest a moose if I had the appropriate permit, to your point, and or harvest ticket option, and I could tag my moose with that brown bear permit, because the moose is only $800 and the brown bear permit was $1,000.
Right. So like your grizzly bear hunt this year, you had a grizzly bear locking tag, but if it just wasn't working out on the last day and we weren't finding grizzly bear, we could have gone over and shot a caribou.
Or if that first caribou on the first day would have been a little closer, I might have burned my bear tag up on that monster bull.
Yes, you may have. So a unique system there where the tag, that's a non-resident thing only, pretty much.
Right.
We're the only ones required to have tags. They give us a little piece of metal to make us feel special for spending all that money, and we can affix it to the animal before we leave. But locking tags are specific to the calendar year that you're in.
Yep.
So if you're going next year, make sure you buy all the tags. You can order them online ahead of time. They send them to you in the mail, and you're set to go. But a plethora of paperwork is necessary to hunt in Alaska. Your license and your permits and your locking tag and your harvest ticket and a little bit of everything to be able to hunt there legally.
All your ducks in a row.
Yes, it can be a little bit of a nightmare. But they are sticklers on everything. I want everybody who has the dream to go up there to see it before non-resident opportunities are cut even more, or it gets so expensive that you just can't do it.
Yeah, and right now there's a great range of price tags associated with Alaskan hunts, and even bonus species like the Kodiak blacktail hunts. You can harvest species of ducks if you're a waterfowler on your Kodiak blacktail hunt that you don't have an opportunity to hunt pretty much anywhere else. So it's just a cool state to be a part of.
It is. So if you're listening to this podcast last minute and you're like, I need to apply, kind of help me with the application system here. A couple tips. When you go in, you can have up to 6 choices on your application. Why they have 6 choices per species, I don't know. But it's the way the system works. Yeah. No, they have 6 choices and 6 chances.
Yeah.
So you can buy 2 chances and put it in as your first choice, and you can buy 4 chances and put it in as your second choice, or whatever it may be. You can do 1 choice for 6 different hunts, but basics of it are it's $5 per choice per application and per person, I should say, as well, except for bison and musk ox. They're $10 choice. So to apply for 6 choices for musk ox, that's $60. 6 choices for, say, caribou or moose is $30.
Yep, and remember, this is on top of your non-refundable $160 license that could be good potentially for up to 3 years.
Correct. Yep. So usually I'll just pick one hunt that I really want and buy 6
dump all
choices
6 choices into it.
But that's
what we usually
game.
recommend. If you really, really want a particular hunt, you have that choice of spreading them out across, sort of hedging your bets, or dumping them all into one. We typically recommend dumping them into one if you have a choice you really want to draw. And
they consider every choice as a separate application, and so you would go in with that many chances on that hunt.
Yep.
So you can better your odds. Even they would be better than what we publish in the magazine, because those draw odds are based off of one choice versus all of the applications received for that hunt code. So definitely remember that when you're applying. As far as party applications, you can put up to 2 hunters on an application. So not a very big party in Alaska, but
it is nice to go with at least one other buddy in Alaska. And Alaska's a tough place to go alone.
For sure.
Unless you're going on a guided hunt.
Like these caribou hunts that people apply for, or even the musk ox hunt, I would recommend applying with a partner, with
Yeah.
a buddy, so that you don't have to ask him and probably pay for him to go with you when you draw, because you don't want to go by yourself. It'd be much better if he has a tag too, and then you can split the costs
Then you both get your
evenly.
wallets out.
Yes. So you can apply for 2, and I'd definitely recommend that, but no more than 2 on the party applications. You do have to apply by Monday, December 16th at 5 p.m. Alaska time. And if it's a guide required species, you need to get a hold of that outfitter immediately. Some of them have contracts on their website you can start getting on, but you need to get on that soon so that your application is valid. The system will take your money, no problem. But if you want to have a valid application for sheep, moose, or goat, for sheep, bear, or goat, you need to have their unique code on your application, have their name and all their information, so that it is seen that you have a guide contract signed up before you apply.
Yep. But again, remember, we've gone through a ton of species that you can hunt without that. And again, we encourage you to go to Alaska sooner rather than later. I absolutely love it. All of us are slowly falling more and more in love with Alaska here. You know, you've been a guide up there for years and years. And each time one of us here as hunt consultants wind up on a hunt in Alaska, we make it a higher and higher priority to have a hunt there every single year.
Yep. The place will try to kill you, as we've said.
Yep.
It's very extreme, but the rewards are amazing up there. And I hope to someday draw something or get to do another hunt that is just once in a lifetime, because most of them are. They're too expensive to hunt frequently for most of us.
So put Alaska on your radar. And if you are a Huntin' Fool member and you have any questions for more detail on this kind of stuff, you can give us a call anytime. It's what we do. It's what we love to do. And we're grateful, quite frankly, for the opportunity to do it. So,
and Alaska's the reason, I mean, we called it out so much that we put Steve Gottfredson on the cover of this magazine with his Musk Ox.
Yeah.
Steve is a resident of Utah. He read the magazine a few years going by. He kept seeing Alaska, and he's like, man, these Musk Ox, I got to put in for that. That looks just like an adventure. And lo and behold, he drew this year, and he went and shot a phenomenal Musk Ox, had an experience of a lifetime. He said the wind was blowing 50 to 60 miles an hour when he took this cover photo. And we thought, you know, what a better species to put on as a true hunting fool, going on an adventure hunt like this, to shoot a thing that looks like a cow, but the adventure behind shooting that thing that looks like a cow is pretty amazing. So check it out in the December magazine, and good luck.